have with me on the show Hazim Hamza. He's all the way in Egypt, and he is a instructor and consultant in supply chain. Good day, Hamza. How are you?
Feeling great. Thank you, Ronaldo, for having me.
Great. It is beautiful today in Seattle, Washington, and it is morning here. And I know over in Egypt it's evening time now, right?
Yeah, we're switching to evening now. A lot of time zone differences.
Very nice, very nice. So Hamza, I'm going to jump right into the questions. I know that you have a lot of people interested in hearing what you have to say about optimizing supply chains and using quantitative analysis, especially in this e commerce setting. A lot of times we rely so much on the software and we don't even know what the software can provide or how we can grab data points and utilize some of these quantitative analysis formulas to really get us to where we need to be, especially in this high demand e commerce setting. So, Hamza, here is my first question for you. And you're going to see two questions at a time show up on the screen. But the first question is, how can supply chain managers forecast successfully during the pandemic?
So I think this is a very good question, and I think your introduction is that we always use systems, but we don't know what are the underlying formulas and theories that the system is working with. So it's very, very important to understand the aspects of the quantitative analysis and how to employ it in a better way, even if you are using a system or a software or a key technology application. So jumping to your question, how can supply chain managers forecast successfully during the pandemics? Well, forecasting is one of the most important managerial tools to manage supply chain resources. If you want to schedule production plan, if you want to manage your inventory, or if you want to design your supply chain management or design your facilities, you need to forecast. And the forecasting, actually, we have to go back to the principles of forecasting. The forecasting is always wrong. Whatever techniques you're using, you're not going to generate great demand forecasts or accurate demand forecasts. It's always wrong. You have some degree of freedom. And the second truism is what forecast is more accurate on an aggregate level because we tend to reduce the coefficient of variation and we generate a better demand forecast. And the third truism is forecast for shorter time horizon is better than longer time horizons. And I'm gonna stop at the third fact, shorter time horizons. So during pandemics, you have updates continuously. So I think you need to get back and forecast for short periods. Forecasting, for example, if you are working for 1 month, perhaps you can consider forecast every couple of weeks because there is updates. And sharing your information with supply chain partners is extremely important. However, I'm going to say a fact about forecasting. It's not always great to use forecast or to rely on forecast 100%. It is just a prediction. It is just an estimation for how the future will be like. So more now than ever, it's very, very important to collaborate with supply chain partners to share information with your customers, with your suppliers about your demand, about the supply, about the risks arise, and about the opportunities, so you can make forecasts successfully during the pandemics. Also, to make sure to include all of the external factors and the internal factors inside your forecast. By this way, you will generate even a greater demand forecast. So you will rely on regression, for example, regression analysis or regression for prediction. So you have to include all the variables that are related to demand forecast. I often see people forecasting demand based on history. They don't include other factors like promotions or like economic downturns or anything. So that's why we need to make a metric about this pandemic and how it's progress, and we can include it in our forecast model so it can become more and more accurate to what we can get from it.
Right. Because
Also, I would like to say that relying on systems like machine learning algorithms will provide a lot of capabilities and a lot of accuracy to your forecast. I was reading a report from McKinsey and Company and saying that forecast using machine learning algorithms
yes.
tend to reduce the variance like 25% on average. It differs by industry, but 25% on average is a massive, massive margin.
That is a
And if you can
massive
achieve that,
variance. Yeah.
you can have a great demand forecast. Yeah.
So you can so if you don't use a 25% variance, you could have a great delta in the data when you do get to the forecasted time frame. So 25% is really compensating, depending on which market you're in. You're always going to have a bench stock, so that is going to be that's going to help you to stay within a good benchmark for your bench stock, right?
Yeah, 100%. 25% is a margin that everyone wishing to success, because if you for some companies, especially for medium and small companies in my region, the forecasting accuracy is just like 50%, 60%. So if you're able to get this percent up to 80% or something, then you have done a great success. But the machine learning capabilities, maybe you don't have someone who work with Python or work with the machine learning algorithms. So you have to be able to understand that forecasting is not just relying on the past history. It is related also to the factors, the external and internal factors that affects your sales or what is the thing you're trying to forecast.
Very nice. Predictive analysis together with
Predict.
using these formulas. Great, and understanding. So, what are some of the frequent go-to formulas outside of an MRP system you are seeing used today?
That is a great question, man. Because MRB is most common technique that is used for manufacturing environments. MRB, I'm going to view it from my point of view, it is an inventory management or an inventory control tool. You are scheduling your activities or your inventory via MRB. It is telling you when you should purchase your inventory, when you should start your production, and when you will receive it. So it will ensure to make a great decision and a better precision in your actions. And you can plan ahead of time. You can plan for the whole year using MRB system. But when I actually go to practice, I identified all of the companies that are using the MRB. MRB was a table which is listing 5 or 6 things. I identified all of the companies that are using MRB. But
Okay.
all of the companies, industrial institutions, are using bill of materials, the list of the products and components, and somehow they will compute what available inventory they have and how much they will order. But aside from MRB, we see often in lean manufacturing and just-in-time supply chain, we see that MRB is not employed very much. They are using it, but not to a large extent as is used in normal or conventional manufacturing plan and control systems.
Okay.
They are using Kanban systems. They are using a pull system to handle, like, reduce the setup costs, to optimize the batch to only one batch. So I think Kanban is a very great system. Maybe it's not 100% utilized, but it's a very great system. But it relies on the culture. If you have a culture from the inside that can adopt lean production technologies or lean concepts, then you can apply to a greater extent how to use Kanban and how to reduce your inventory, reduce your setup costs, and eventually increase your profit and ensure everything is correct without shortages, without stockouts, and without even excess stock. Also, there are some technologies like optimized production technology, which calculates precisely optimal production schedule, and based on that, it will generate your inventory procurement status and will provide you with a detailed level almost instantaneously and every minute. But these technologies are somewhat expensive. It requires a multi-million dollars for investment and may
Certainly.
not be available for everyone to purchase or to use. So it's more recommended to see what are your capabilities, what do you want to achieve, and how do you want to achieve it in terms of ordering systems and how to manage your inventory through the MRP.
Great, because you can spend a lot of money in the millions and not even know how to utilize the systems exactly how to benefit making sure your inventory is optimized. So I have another question for you here, another two questions for you. When deploying quantitative analysis as a supply chain manager, what are some steps to ensure data isn't stale?
Oh, actually, this is one of the best questions that I faced in my entire life. As you know that I instruct some supply chain courses. One of them is called supply chain statistical analysis. Over there, I provide a whole section on how to clean data, how to query data, how to understand if there is a variances inside the data. So we use quantitative analysis, of course. We use descriptive statistics to get a summary of the data. I mean, the minimum, the maximum value, the range, the standard deviation, the coefficient of variation. All of this data can provide you with a sense of how the data is behaving. So in my training or my instructions to my students, I give them a deliberately, and I intend to put some wrong data. So I put a minimum value in minus, and I put a negative value in a large number. A large number, it's like an outlier. So when they do the summary statistics, they say, okay, you know what? This doesn't make sense. How can I have sales in negative? Or how can I have money in negative? I think there must be a wrong data. So every time you are trying to make any quantitative analysis, prior to this analysis, you should have a perception about your data, cleaning your data, and figure out the wrong entries. I mean, the row and the column are not matching together. Any records that have inaccuracy or wrong or fat fingers that can put double of numbers together. So all of these problems you have to be aware of. Using statistics can be very, very helpful in trying to cleaning your data.
How do our supply chain managers ensure that they have these tools, you know, in analyzing? Because I have used quantitative analysis before. I remember going into organizations and you know, they did not have a digital system, so I had to pull invoices and look at their general ledgers to categorize data and create data points, you know, to come up with some sort of predictive analysis. And no one really taught me that. I just went towards that direction as a supply chain with the supply chain education. But you know, we're talking about you know, on this show we're closing the gap between education, business, and technology. So, what are some ways that our audience can, you know, make this sort of, you know, natural instinct for them to go and utilize some of these quantitative analysis and think in that statistical and predictive way?
So I think this is something you don't even think about until you face it. So for example, you would make a couple of days making your analysis or making your forecast and generate a very wrong forecast just because you don't know how to use statistics. So I think this is something you should have in
Looks like we lost Hazim a little bit here. Okay, looks like we lost Hazim a little bit there for a second, and let's see if he's able to reconnect and come back in. So we're talking about quantitative analysis and how important it is, even outside of the system, to be able to grab the data points and use some of what I call pretty simple math to figure out and predict and forecast better. You know, the key word is forecast, you know, meaning that it's not going to be exactly what you intend it to be, especially in today's environment with today's demand that we're seeing because of the pandemic. So we have to compensate for the delta. And Hassan is saying that we should always use a 25% compensation variance to be able to sort of, you know, shorten that delta space or close in on better decisions. So I hope that he can join us back here today. But today you're here with me. My name is Ronaldo Valentine, and this is, we call it Future Rich as Dubai. We're closing the gap between education, technology, and business. Here's Hassan. All right, we lost you there for a second. Right in the middle of the good stuff you were telling us.
Okay. What were you saying about me during when I'm not here?
I was basically regurgitating everything that you mentioned about forecasting and, you know, compensating for the delta. that you're going to experience. Because after all, forecasting, you're not going to be right on target. You're going to always fall a little short, and you want to, make that delta a little smaller, right?
Yeah, of course, you don't have always to say, okay, I will rely on 25%. I'm saying the machine learning algorithms can help you to reduce this delta by a margin of 25% according to McKinsey and Company report. But it is related to the industry, it is related to the product life cycle, it is related to you as a person to reduce this delta or the error between the forecast and the actual demand.
Hazem, you attended MIT, as I learned
Yeah.
today, and no wonder you have all this great insight, and you practice quantitative analysis regularly as a procurement manager and a consultant as well. So how can folks get a hold of you if they have questions about implementing a way to properly utilize some of this analysis outside of the systems, or even look at the systems differently and how they can utilize reports and stuff like that coming out of the systems?
So basically, if you're asking me what people can do to understand data even better,
No, I'm asking
uh,
you, how can they contact you to ask you for your help to understand their data better?
so they can contact me via my LinkedIn connection, or they can contact me or just drop an email, and I will read their email and I'll be happy to reply to them and to provide my assistance, of course.
Well, what give them your email or your Instagram so they can see all of the equations and good information that you're putting out there.
It's on LinkedIn. My title is Hazem Hamza, CBIM SCM. It's Hazem Hamza, CBIM SCM. They can search with the name that's visible on the screen right now. Just add to it CBIM SCM, or just type in Google Hazem Hamza Supply Chain Professional. My LinkedIn account will be at their premise, so they can look at my profile and see how I can do what I'm doing right now. And they can contact me, of course. We can utilize from information sharing.
Great. And there was one question that I am just reviewing here that I want to give you before we leave. Where is Egypt compared to the USA in terms of available e-commerce? I know that is a very broad question, but basically, in Egypt, can I order today and get it in a few minutes, or just like Amazon? And how well is it working in Egypt?
So, e-commerce, one of the theories actually of COVID-19 that it accelerated the adoption of e-commerce and accelerated the adoption of technology and online ordering and so on. So in the United States, for example, you have Amazon Prime, which you order and receive your package or anything in a couple of minutes or at the same day. But in Egypt, we may don't have the same experience, but we have Amazon operates in Egypt through its Souk.com, which is the e-commerce platform available in Egypt. And there are many other platforms available in Egypt for e-commerce, and it's working very well. But you can receive your order like a couple of days from now, or something like that. It will depend on your region. So I'm not living in Cairo. I'm living far from Cairo. So package deliveries are getting like couple days from my ordering and so on. But I think the experience or the competition is driving the competitors to provide even better service with lower cost. So I think we are growing in this area, and we have grown, and we will witness in the future or in the near future a tremendous growth in the e-commerce area, especially with a lot of startup businesses that work in e-commerce. I think this will bring a great deal of competition and will reduce the costs and so on.
Thank you so much, Hazem. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about quantitative analysis. And I hope that our audience could take away different ways in which to analyze their data and make sense of the data. And remember that they need to cleanse their data before analysis, and also compensate by using that 25% rule in forecasting. And hopefully they reach out to you with questions on how to properly deploy some of these techniques in ensuring that their forecasting is where it needs to be. And I hope to have you back on the show again, where we can, maybe show, one of the systems or formulas that you utilize today, even if it's in Excel. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to provide such a 25 minutes or 30 minutes about how to use formulas and how to use Excel in order to analyze your data, clean your data, and make some quantitative analysis and maybe do some forecasting on your data. I'd be happy to provide that. Just remember, guys, that quantitative analysis is not something that is very hard to do. It doesn't require you to carry a big calculator and do this and do that. It just needs you to have an analytical mindset to look at everything as it were there is a problem and you want to analyze and want to diagnose and bring out the problems at your place. So by having this analytical mindset and some of the basic tools of statistics, then you can make a great analysis. And if you wanted to advance more and learn something about operations research or like calculus, you can get a great deal of savings, a great deal of analytics, a great precision in decision-making process. So thank you, Rinaldo, for having me, and I hope to meet you soon.
I hope to meet you soon as well. I have to say that from my travels to Bahrain and Dubai, people always ask me if I'm from Egypt.
You look like Egyptian, man.
Well, there you have it. I have an Egyptian person telling me the same thing, so I must have some roots there.
Yeah, obviously.
All right, thank you so much, and we will keep. Let's meet in the green room for a couple minutes, and we will keep the discussion going. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. Follow Valentine Logistics on Facebook, YouTube, and V Logistics on Instagram, and make sure that you contact me if you need to import into United States of America or export to anywhere in the world. We have over 35,000 carriers in our network, so you want to utilize our leverage. Okay, thank you so much.